Oh,
And
welcome back, everyone. It looks like we're streaming live on YouTube. That's exciting. I don't know. It's been a couple weeks, right?
yeah, we had some issues last week where we thought we were streaming. It said we were streaming, but we weren't. In fact, if you don't mind, go ahead and do our intro. I'm going to do a quick check to make sure we are streaming.
All right, great. Yeah. Well, welcome back, everyone. This is Talk Openly, Lions or Dharma Center's little podcast show. I'm here with my excellent friend Daniel. I'm Jack, and we're going to be talking tonight about healthy relationships. Ginormous topic. I don't know how we'll cover even, barely scratch the surface. So I don't know. This might be the start of a series of sorts, possibly. We'll
Oh yeah.
figure it out. Yeah.
I think we were talking before the show. I feel like we could have a whole show that was nothing but just talking about healthy relationships, and we'd
Yeah.
have enough to talk about until the end of time.
From a Dharma perspective. Yeah, for sure.
Certainly.
Well, great. I'm really glad to be back. I'm tired today. But I'm here and yeah, glad to see you.
Same, same. But in all aspects, the tiredness and the
Mm,
happy to see you part of it. Thanks
yeah.
for even though your energy levels may not be as high as you I wish they were, thanks for still sharing your time and energy with us.
Gosh, yeah, same for you. Yeah, and for anyone listening, we feel you. So I imagine that many of you are in a similar state.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
reasons for it, right? Maybe you're waking up too early. Maybe you're strung out on politics. Maybe
right.
working too hard. Maybe practicing too hard. Who knows?
All the things, right? Yeah. Yeah, I've been having this issue where I get up in the morning and no matter what time of the morning I wake up, like I could sleep 6 hours, I could sleep 9 hours. And when I sit down for meditation, I just am so drowsy,
Nah.
like no matter what. And it's like, I've had this problem off and on, throughout my training, but man, the last few weeks, it's really been like every day. Um, so I don't know if that's just like, obstacle. I mean, it's an obstacle arising, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It arises and it ceases. But right now it seems to be pretty persistent. So
Yeah.
um, our friend Dirk gave a talk on Sunday about Tara practice and kind of his personal experience with Tara practice, which I really appreciated. I thought it was an awesome talk. But one of the things he mentioned that I thought was really kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that's happening, is that he feels that Tara practice, whenever he's about to approach doing the practice, all these different obstacles come up, whether like external or internal,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe that's partially what's happening is like I'm doing Tara practice, and this obstacle of like just overwhelming fatigue. Man, I even did walking meditation this morning and I was like drowsy while walking. So I'm
Ah.
trying, but
I have a question for you related to the
yeah.
drowsiness, sleepiness part of it. So does it, so do you remain in awareness and you are simply aware of your sort of low energy state, drowsiness, or does it cause you to slip off?
Gosh, I wish I could say the former. Typically it's the latter. So typically I fall off, but when I have caught myself and reminded myself like, okay, this is just where it's at. Like let me just experience drowsiness, and have that be like my object of shamatha, like,
Yeah.
and watching that object, that can be really fruitful. Um, and usually what happens is that I see how ephemeral of a
Right.
state it is. And there's waves of it, it comes and goes. Maybe a little surge of something else comes along. So that can be a good training, definitely.
How do you find so okay, all right. So you were saying about the awareness aspect of it that you kind of drop in and out. Compared to 4 years ago, let's just say. Um, how long does it take you to remember that you're meditating and come back?
Not that long. Not that long. I would say that
Right.
for the most part, I'm like pretty aware of when I'm slipping off. Do I apply the antidote every time? Not necessarily. That's the thing is like
Sure.
non-application is definitely an obstacle in my meditation for sure. So I
Mm.
can have the awareness and like be choosing not to change.
Or just forgetting.
Forgetting, yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the thing is that I think something about the beginner's mind too, like when I was first starting, I was almost like kind of more on it in a way. Like I didn't have the same skills and I wasn't as aware of what I was doing and like how to bring myself back.
Right.
But in some way, the newness of it and like
Right.
kind of the mystery and the exploration was like I was a little bit more like
Yeah.
in it and
Yeah.
like yeah, engaged.
Yeah.
Right? So I was thinking about that actually the other morning and I really tried to remind myself like beginner's mind, right? Like what was the mind I had when I like first started to feel um like really excited about Dharma practice. And there is this kind of like um almost romantic quality to it. Like, not romantic in the terms of like a romantic partner, but like this like, oh, just like endearing kind of like being drawn towards
Yeah.
and there's a sacredness, right? And so I want to
And a
get back in
curiosity as
touch.
well that comes with that, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what it is. You don't know what to expect. You don't have all this time, all this experience with it. So you don't know. And so you're like, what's gonna happen? Whoa, I drifted off for an entire meditation. Isn't that interesting, Whereas now we have like sort of expectations and some ideas about how it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to go. And
Yeah.
familiarity with our minds, and we're like, oh, there it is again. Okay, I'll just go back to sleep.
Gosh, what a this is feeling very relevant for our conversation tonight about healthy relationships, right?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It is. It is.
Yeah, getting
Yeah.
very used to a pattern. Yeah, maybe not as excited or curious
Uh-huh.
about our partner. It's the same thing, yeah, going
Same thing.
right, the
Same
honeymoon
thing.
phase with
Yeah.
meditation where it's like, oh, and this is just how it is now. Okay, this is work. This is
Right.
but
Right.
can I approach that relationship, that real effortful relationship with like joy and passion and it's possible, right?
Hell yeah, it's possible. It better
Yeah,
be.
it better be, right? We're not
Yeah.
just dragging our feet through the mud.
Yeah. Why would we be bothering with any of this if it wasn't possible?
Right.
Yeah.
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 Good. How are you doing? How's your training?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad you mentioned Tara practice. I did not get to listen to Dirk's talk. I will catch up with it when it gets onto YouTube.
Cool.
I was looking forward to it, but I was unable to attend it. But it's kind of neat. I do actually have an experience that's related to this that and related to our show tonight.
Mm.
So I had I've been you with your encouragement to keep a dream journal. I've been noting and watching my dreams, and I'm hunting for Tara, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, where is she? Where is she? And I keep expecting her in my dreams. I'm like, and I'm like, some magical, mystical thing is gonna happen, and I'm gonna have this kind of like dream experience. But no, actually, all I get is like really weird dream stuff, like that makes no sense, and it's just all over the place, which
Yeah.
is normal for my mind, right? Um, but what's really cool is I recently actually saw Tara in action. I saw her. I had an experience of her that was really quite beautiful and directly related to our discussion about healthy relationships.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm,
I-
mm-hmm.
Do you want to share it now
I'll
or
share it. I'll share
later?
it now. Maybe it'll weave back in. But
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine, where previously I'd met up with them, and we were just chatting, and they were talking about they had this long-term, partner that's been many, many years together. And as people change, things change, bodies change, and there'd been some illness and whatnot, and so the dynamics in the relationship were quite different than they were starting out. And there
Yeah.
was a pretty high responsibility or burden on my friend. And
Mm,
so that they did not have initially in the relationship. And so I had asked them, how do you avoid resentment? And they were like, well, um, huh, I'll come back to you on that one, right? And
mm,
so I was talking to them the other day, and they said, hey, just wanted to follow up on your question about resentment. And they said, the answer is that I have to remember. I have to remember that I love them. And
mm,
then they gave some concrete examples. It wasn't some vague little, they'd clearly been thinking about it. And they were essentially the same way Lama talks about the way that we need to train to something that we already know, right?
yeah.
So in that way, it was like what my friend was saying was it's like training to these, like, to remember these wonderful experiences that they'd had together, and to remember this person in all of their, their richness and their experiences, and to remember all the wonderful, happy, gorgeous moments that they'd had together along the way, and still do, but like they're just different now than they were in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And it was really quite beautiful because in that moment, as they were speaking, I was like, "Ah, there she is. I see
Oh,
her. Ah."
oh,
Yeah,
that's
it
beautiful.
really was. It was gorgeous.
Oh, so Tara was there in the effort to not go into resentment, but
Not to go into
it,
resentment, but there
yeah.
there was a lot more actually. So my sort of a perception of Tara in the moment was far greater than that. It had a
Mm,
lot to do with courageousness, vulnerability, this immediate, responding, right? This
mm,
great compassion, and that moves towards action, right? Like
mm.
all of there was all it was the full glory, all of Tara's wonderful attributes were on display. It wasn't just one thing. I wish I could convey it in a better, more poetic way, but the experience was truly, truly quite wonderful and amazing, and more real than any kind of dream would ever be.
Wow.
Yeah,
That sounds awesome.
it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Were you able to reflect any of that to your friend that you kind of saw that?
No, actually, I had it was actually when we were parting that this happened.
Mm,
And so then I reflected on it quite a lot actually, and I've decided to write it down. And
yeah.
so I'm going to write it down and present my friend with it, so that they too can see their own Tara nature.
Mm, that's beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that.
yeah, yeah. I was so happy.
Yeah.
And it's it's so applicable to what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's encouraging. It's like a call, like you said, a kind of a call to action to really engage in our relationships and to yeah, to show up with love and encourage, right? It's hard to be
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Well, and just like in our meditation practice, we have to remember what we're doing,
Yeah.
right? We have to be like, oh, right. Like, why am I sitting here on this cushion? Why am I doing this stuff? We should remember on a regular basis why we're doing it. If we don't understand our intention or motivation, I'm not sure it's as helpful as it could be.
It's really not. I mean, I think that's possibly in part some of my fatigue, right? Because I notice when I am centered in that intention and that motivation and really feel driven by it, that's kind of like the juice, right? That's like the energy that drives it. Um, and uh and then when I'm a little bit more like kind of lackadaisical about like meditating on the four thoughts that turn the mind and kind of the four measurables.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit more just checking the box. Then yeah, there's a different experience. And so I could definitely consider that as a what's happening here, or part of it, playing a part.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to just go through the motions.
No, in anything, right?
It's interesting too, right? Have you ever noticed that, like when you do mantras, for example, it's very easy to get into where you're just like, it's just this sort of mechanical process that's
Yeah.
happening, and your
Yep.
mind's actually gone. It's, doing other things, and
Right.
then I think what's cool about mantras is then you're like, oh, what's this weird thing that I'm doing here with these
Right.
beads and why am I saying, oh, right, I remember, oh, right, this mantra means this, and then what's really cool is then you have hopefully the sort of cognitive and emotional sort of heartfelt like connection back to whatever that mantra is about, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of the key is like it's like when they talk about quantity versus quality, it's all about quality, right? I
For
think
sure.
this is just my own sense is that it's probably better to do one mantra really sort of with great awareness and intention than it is to do 1,000 without.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just my
It's kind of,
opinion.
I almost imagined like the letters of the mantra getting really big when you described like it's better to do just one. Like that just kind of like was a visual to me where it's like, oh, almost like if you could really just be with the
Yeah.
every syllable and what it meant.
Right.
It's like it would just become your whole environment or something.
Right,
Um,
right. Like do
yeah.
like doing the seven limb offering, right? So like, is that's an easy one to sort of just like you're like, I'm just gonna go like I just gotta whip it out because I'm gonna do that as preparation before my meditation or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And it to me, like the times when that happens where I'm just kind of going through the motion, it's meaningless. I
Yeah.
shouldn't even have done it, you know?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
then when the times where I can like really visualize the merit feel, I can really connect to the lineage and I can connect to the teachings and I can remember this extraordinary, beneficial relationship that I
Mhm.
have with all of these beings, right? And with these teachings, when I can really actually remember, then something happens. There's a shift, you know?
There is, yeah, definitely. It's in like it's in the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Um, cool. Yeah, they're all about relationship, right?
All about relationship. I gotta say, before we even go any further with it, I remember one time, Lama, he had opened the floor to questions after some talk, and I asked him, I said, "How do you?" He was leading a meditation session, and I said, "How do teachers know when the students are actually doing the work, right? Like, how can you tell that this there's been progress. Like, what's your measuring stick to give A plus B minus sort of whatever it is? And he said, without missing a beat, he said, the number one thing that I notice is that the relationships improve.
Yeah, great. I think I'm doing okay then.
Yeah, right? You've noticed your relationships have in fact improved, haven't
They
you?
have.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still your neurotical self.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is cool. Thank you for that. That's very encouraging. And a good kind of like lamppost, right? Where it's like, let me check in with how I'm doing. How are my relationships?
Right,
That's
right.
great.
When that
Yeah.
stuff starts getting off kilter, then it's a good time to sort of maybe like come back to center.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah,
sure. Oh, cool.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Shall we do some Lojong? You want to get
Heck
into
yeah, I want to do some Lojong. I thought you'd never ask.
it? I always want to do Lojong.
As
Mind
always, I want to
training.
extend a heartfelt thanks to Dirk for creating the random Lojong slogan generator. It is, regardless of how many English language random Lojong slogan generators there might be in the world, this one's my favorite.
Me too. Let's see here. 31. Ah, very good. Don't react on impulse to critical remarks. I have a story for this in a little
Oh,
bit.
okay. All right. All right.
Okay. Charlotte Cabgon writes, this slogan relates to our anger and the impulsive responses we make when we are completely filled with aggression. Its immediate concern is the ways we lash out at others over derogatory remarks made about us. Words carry enormous power. We must be sensitive to how we express ourselves and resist the temptation to follow our impulses and jump to conclusions about what others say. We should not think our ears are neutral receptors whose sole purpose is to receive information in an unadulterated fashion. We often hear what we want to hear, or even what we are afraid of hearing, because our receptivity is so intermingled with our fears, desires, and expectations. The very idea that someone said something disagreeable is enough to make us angry. These days, we are constantly confronted with phenomena such as road rage, where every little aggression, imagined or not, compels us to become physically or verbally abusive. Charlie Cabgon never ceases to amaze me. I really need to get his Lojong book. Mind at Ease is an excellent book that I've read and really recommend. He just really, I think he speaks to a Western audience in such a powerful way. So I recommend. But yeah, what kind of a powerful slogan this is, and so easy to forget in the moment when criticism does arise. I'm definitely someone who in the past, I would say like currently I'm sensitive, but in the past it was really intense.
Oh
It's
yeah.
gotten so much better.
Right.
But I would definitely do that thing what he's saying here about like, even if you don't know actually what the person's intent was, or if there is even something disagreeable being said, like I still would take it personally. Um, and uh, and so that, yeah, I'm glad to see that that's shifting. Um, but so today, actually, I had this experience where a little bit of like defensiveness rose up in me, and and I got to watch it, and it was so good. It was like this moment of like, I think I'm like improving, right?
All right,
Um,
come on, spill the tea.
so I work in mental health. I work with clients of all ages in a primary care clinic setting. And so I see a lot of people of all different backgrounds and mental health issues and whatnot. And within the last few weeks, I've had three people, kind of three of my clients, back channel other people on their team to say that they didn't want to work with me anymore for various reasons. And they were reasons that I was kind of like, huh, okay, that's interesting. And so the third one came in today, and I was just like, I could sense like again, you know, that feeling of like, what
Dang.
the hell? And so it was really good because I got to look and see like, actually, is there criticism happening here? Or is it just that, you know, we aren't matching, right? Like that happens. That's actually very
Sure.
common in therapy and
Yeah.
very important to address. And then also in the other two people, there's kind of some stuff happening for them that I think is I was yeah, I was encouraging them to work on some things that I think they didn't want to work on, weren't ready to work on.
Sure.
And so, you know, makes sense that they'd want to go to someone else. And so it was so good for me because I was able to like think about that and be like, oh yeah, I don't have to take that personally. And this is like a thing that that can encourage me to grow. And also, I don't have to make everybody happy. That's actually something that like is a major thing that I'm trying to like coach
Right.
people on in therapy, right? Is that don't make everyone happy. That's
Right.
not your job. And so that was a good experience. And I genuinely don't now as I'm talking about it, I don't feel that kind of like reactiveness that I initially felt.
And
So
isn't it, when you experience that, so there you are, you're seeing, so like the watching mind is like recognizing it's like, oh, here's this thing happening again because it's cyclical, like samsaric sort of things are, right? It's going to come back again and again and again. And in the past, you recognize like, oh, I would latch on to it with attachment or aversion or whatever, and it would kind of spin out, right? It'd have all
Yeah.
kinds of, it would create lots of energy around it and all kinds of feelings and thoughts, and your mental chatter would go, your monkey would go crazy, start flinging poo and whatnot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you know that, and then in the moment you see it and you're like, oh, oh yeah, I felt like a little tiny little like tinge of it for a moment, but now I can see I'm, you know, they're empty on their side, I'm empty on my side. They have their karma, I have my karma. Ah, yeah, okay,
Yeah. All
yeah.
right.
And there's
Yeah.
like that's freaking freedom.
It is.
Right? That's liberation. My
It
God,
is.
what a relief. Do you
Yeah.
remember how bad that crap was? Like,
Really bad.
oh,
Yeah, real bad.
yeah. Yeah, it was unpleasant.
Yeah.
Like, and how nice, like to be able to just sort of be like, yeah, all right, peace, enjoy.
Yeah.
I wish you, I hope you find the person that's going to be a good, good tool for you or good,
Yeah.
whatever helper for you.
For sure. Yeah, and that can come from a genuine place, rather than like
Truly.
a, yeah,
Right.
like a sarcastic or,
Oh, no.
like
Right.
shitty place.
Right.
Um, I hope that I wouldn't ever come from that perspective as a therapist, but yeah, our little heartstrings get
Yeah.
tugged sometimes too. So
For sure, we're people. You ever notice though that the critical remarks, a lot of times the criticism isn't actually, if you look at the message is not critical.
right, right.
It's actually
No,
what
no.
happens is we become self-critical and we project our self, we're like, oh, they are saying these things about me, whatever. But actually, no, when you're just looking at it, like you said, like, oh, they just have different needs or whatever. Like it's
Right.
no big deal. It's not personal. And
It's
like
not
how
personal.
freaking often is that the case that whatever somebody else is doing, it has, even if it's something that involves you, it's still not personal, not about
Yeah,
you.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's like that's got to be one of my main mantras. All right. It's like, yeah, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
I really try and remind myself, oh, this is a really cool
Oh
image.
my gosh, this is gorgeous. Love
Wow, who
it.
is this?
Avalokiteshvara Padmapani, the Bodhisattva of mercy bearing a lotus.
Wow,
Wow. Gorgeous.
beautiful.
Huh.
Thanks, Dirk, for compiling all these beautiful images.
I love that. That is so cool.
We've really got like some amazing Sangha members, right? Like we've got some scholars,
Oh,
and
very
it's
fortunate to
really,
have them.
yeah, I feel super fortunate. Great. Well, my friend,
Yeah.
healthy relationships. We've got started on it already from
Yeah.
talking about our training, right? Having a
Yeah.
healthy relationship to our training. And noticing the same patterns that we might notice in a romantic relationship, right? Um, but yeah, I think healthy relationships and what that actually is, what those are, is on my mind a lot, both for my own personal reasons as well as, my professional reasons. Is that's pretty much all that is talked about in therapy,
Hmm.
right? In some way or
Yeah.
another is relationship. And it's certainly what brought me to therapy as well, and to the Dharma. Um, and so, yeah, I just thought maybe we could just open the floor for this big discussion, and I'm sure we could have some spin-off shows. But
Do
let's
you
let's dig in.
do you think that there for this discussion, do you think there's any difference in the different types of relationships, or do you
It's a
think
good
that
question.
basically sort of the rules are almost always this, like it changes in terms of degree perhaps, but that basically the sort of the foundations of good healthy relationships are the same regardless of the type of relationship?
That's a really good question. I think Yeah, generally there's the same building blocks.
Yeah.
Um, where and especially if we're coming from a Dharma perspective, we want to have relationships that are non-harming,
Hmm.
um, and that are supportive and kind, compassionate, and yeah, reflect our values. And so I think that whether that's a romantic relationship, a family relationship, romantic, um, child, all of
Yeah.
those fit, all of those make sense. And the same kleshas are going to show up in all those relationships, though they look different, of course, from a friendship to a romantic relationship.
Right. Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that the foundation sort of principles, the building blocks are the same. Obviously the way that thing we show up in, varies with different people. And of course, so the manifestations are different. And sometimes the intensity. I think primarily in terms of sort of more intimate relationships, not necessarily just romantic, but just like family, for example, and close friends. That's primarily where I was at. But I was thinking about it. I was like, it's kind of the same, even relationships with neighbors and stuff. It's just sort of a matter of degrees.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to say I read in thinking about this talk, I read this amazing, wonderful article by John Wellwood. It was
Huh.
in on the Lions Roar website, not Lions Roar Dharma Center website. It was on
At
the
the magazine.
magazine Lions Roar by John Wellwood. I forget the title of it, but it was something like, intimate relationships as a crucible for spiritual development.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, great article. Highly recommend reading it.
I
Good
I
stuff.
love that language, the crucible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because they were using it as as a metaphor, like alchemy, right?
Right.
And that basically, I'll just briefly give it.
Please, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the basic idea being that what we're bringing into a relationship is like being to being, this open sort of thing that we usually kind of experience a taste of in the beginning during like a honeymoon phase, or like the early stages of a relationship when we're like we see all the good qualities, and that's kind of like all we see, but it's just
Yeah.
all so good and so open and see so flowing and all of that. And that's sort of like the gold quality, right? That's in there. And then it's mixed with the ore, right? Which is
Mm.
all the kleshas, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of our egoic patterns, habitual patterns of relating to people that have been forming throughout existences so over and over again, right? And then that love is the heat, right?
Mm.
And the heat of the love is actually what is causing a lot of the energy that eventually, if we play our cards right, we can sort of distill sort of the molten core gold essence out of it, right? And sort of I
Wow.
imagine sort of reflecting like this notion of distilling like our Buddha nature.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
It is, but my favorite actually part of the article was not that part. The alchemical part of it was cool, but then when John started talking about relationships, intimate relationships as a charnel ground, that's when I was
Oh.
like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I
Totally.
know the charnel ground for
I
sure.
know the charnel grounds, yeah. And I know the alchemy too.
Sure.
But yeah, how interesting. And it's speaking about it in kind of like there's the third thing, right? So there's the
Right.
two people involved in any
Yeah.
relationship, whether that's family, friends, romantic. And then there's also the relationship itself. There's that
Yeah.
third thing. So I can kind of
Ah,
imagine. So there's the gold that is in the alchemy process, and then there's the charnel ground. Those are the third things, the relationship itself, right? Am I getting that right?
I'm not quite sure. I think that no, I mean, yes, that the three aspects, right? Or there's the individuals, and then there's this sort of third entity that is the
Mm-hmm.
energy combination, the bond between the two of them. But they were using charnel ground more like that intimate relationships are an opportunity for us to face reality as it is, the truth of reality as it is, including the ugly, including the death and dying and change and impermanence, all of that stuff, that's all part of it, is
Yeah.
the way that they were using the charnel ground imagery. But that point that you made is, I think, incredibly valid. If you I had this experience because we have these, when we have these opportunities, when we get past that initial stage of like really liking and seeing
Yeah.
all this goodness, and then we begin to come face to face with our own egoic patterns, and our egoic patterns clashing with theirs. My tendency is, like the whole fight or flight thing. Mine is flight.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just turn and like I go the other way. And the other thing, the cautionary note for spiritual practitioners is that spiritual bypass is oftentimes used as a mechanism to avoid these things.
Huh.
And I couldn't help. I was like, fudge.
Yeah.
That's like that. I recognized, I was like, dude, I had that kind of thing happen, and nearly ruined some really good relationships, where what happened was that I mistook. I was like, that song, "There's only you and me and we just disagree." You know that song?
Huh. I
Yeah.
don't think I
Oh, it's like
do,
this
but that's a
old,
great
there's this
title.
old song, and I remember during this one particular phase where I was like, "Hey, there's you over there, and there's me over here, and that's all there is.
Yeah.
That's it." And if
Yeah.
if it's not working out, like there's no we here because it doesn't exist, right?
Ah,
And so I
yeah.
threw that third person out, or that third entity out completely, because I was like, nah, there's just these two parts,
Yeah.
And so by doing that, that's incredibly dangerous, because it is in fact a very real thing that we're working on there, is this
Right.
union. Yeah.
Right, for sure. Well, and I've heard Lama mention a couple times about how in couples counseling, he's kind of aware of who's going to be successful and who maybe isn't. And the folks who are successful are those who, they talk about the relationship.
Right.
They're not saying you did this or they need to fix this. It's, we want to work on the relationship.
Right.
And that's very powerful, that it seems like such a subtle shift, but it means everything. It's like, oh, we're working together. Actually, we
Right.
realize
Yeah.
that this is not a me versus you separate here. It's,
Right.
there's this thing that we've created, and it needs to be tended to like a
Yeah.
garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt
Hmm.
about it. So how do we
Yeah.
tend to it? What do you think?
Yeah. How do we tend to it? Um, well, I mean, I think from a Dharma perspective, I've been thinking about how valuable the five precepts have been for me in creating and maintaining healthy relationships. Um, Especially the one of like, avoiding lying.
Hmm.
For me, it's pretty easy to tell a white lie, or just kind of like, maybe not tell the full story,
Right.
kind of cherry pick certain things. Um, and, I think there's ways to say the truth that aren't as painful. But being very honest and transparent in my relationships has just vastly improved them,
Yeah.
and opened up kind of vulnerability and intimacy that I didn't have before with certain people, and that includes my mom, who um, we used to just not talk about certain parts of my life that she didn't approve of, um, and that didn't work for me.
Right.
But for a long time I just kind of stayed mum about things. um but yeah, so being able to find ways to share my life with her in a way that was honest, um but also didn't damage the relationship, that was interesting. That took some skill, and I don't think I wouldn't have done it well 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
But now that I have these tools of, transparency, non-harming, which in the connection with my mom means like I need to be really aware of her values, and respectful of her values, though I disagree with some of them.
Yeah.
And to, just share my love rather than my anger. Because there's a lot that I could be angry about. But I'm choosing to have a relationship with her. And for so many reasons, I love this person very much. But yeah, so I feel like the five precepts, I'm thinking about others, like things that have been helpful for me so much was avoiding intoxicants. How much healthier my relationships have become, in part because I don't spend time with people who use a lot of substances
Right.
anymore. And so, I have most people in my life still like drink alcohol every once in a while, other than my Sangha friends and buddies. But I don't have anyone in my life close to me who is a heavy drinker, or someone who heavily uses substances. And I don't judge that. Like I've worked in harm reduction for a long time, so I judge people who use substances. But for me, it's that's a space where I've gotten really toxic when I'm using substances, drinking.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I have very poor relationships, abusive relationships, both ends, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the other person abusing me. And so, yeah, ending that just
Mm,
torture, right? Like
yeah.
just taking that out of the equation has made things just so much better.
It's so weird. I was thinking about it. I'm glad you brought up the precepts.
Mm.
And that fifth one, definitely about avoiding intoxicants. Huge, massive change. Massive. I think that was probably between that one and not killing. Um
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's an important
Not
one.
that I'm glad I'm not doing that.
Oh, good,
No,
good.
but really, truly, the how many terrible arguments and disagreements and fights or whatever with that involved alcohol. Oh,
Yep, big
like
time.
there's never been a situation where I was like, oh yeah, that disagreement was made better somehow. The resolution came about better, faster because alcohol was involved.
Right,
Never, never, not
right,
once in my entire life have I ever witnessed alcohol improving conflict ever.
right.
Right?
Even cannabis,
Well,
right? Because like,
I was getting there, Jack. I was getting there.
yeah.
It's because I was like, all right, I'm California sober, I don't drink anymore, and thank God. But the weed thing, I find that helpful and whatever. But no, man, when I quit smoking weed, which I've been doing that since, oh my God, I've been doing it for decades and like
Yep,
heavy usage, right?
yeah,
And I always thought, oh yeah, it makes me like a better partner, a better dad, better whatever, because I'm like
yes.
chill and creative and whatever. I made up some kind of a stupid story about it. And then when I stopped, it broke my heart because I realized that I had not had authentic, genuine connection with people, right? That they were not
Mhm.
connecting with me and I was not connecting with them. Like we were present with each other, like, we spend time and space together, but that we didn't there like it was like you were talking about sort of being naked and vulnerable, right? And being seen and connecting, right? And man, cannabis was like a heavy cloak,
Yeah.
covering all of it, just like like a, what do they call the ones where you can just see the through the eyes, like you just the covering, the like the
Oh,
Muslim covering.
yes. Oh, like a hijab, like a
Like,
very, yeah,
yeah, but you wouldn't just see the eyes, just barely,
yeah,
Like it was,
yeah.
weed was like that for me.
It was like that. Yeah, yeah. Very hard to see just outside of that, the kind of narrow band.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
see, they couldn't see me, whatever. And so I'm grateful that fifth precept super helpful.
Yeah, super helpful in relationships. Yeah. What else? I mean, what else have you found to be so helpful from Dharma in maintaining your relationships, making them better?
You could ask, what have I not found
I
helpful?
know, right? Everything.
Literally everything,
I know.
right? Like beyond a shadow of a doubt, everything all the Dharma teachings, everything is practical and affects my relationships. I
Yeah.
think that one of the, to kind of just to kind of touch back on this whole, like the article I was reading about the crucible thing, is that there's this part where we're going to be challenged in our relationships, right? And there's this, we tend to have sort of poor coping strategies and poor mechanisms, right? We're always sort of defending these notions of ourselves, and we're acting out habitual patterns and things like that. But that's not going to lead to a healthy relationship. And so there
Mm,
has to be this sort of like dropping some of that, letting it go, and hopefully the interactions will do that. So in my case,
mm.
I have this my life partner now of 8, 9 years, something like that. She is I like to refer to her as the goddess Kali. I don't know if you've ever seen the Kali imagery, but she's got, she's got swords,
Yeah.
right? And she is trampling on egos, and she is cutting heads. So if I get
Right.
out of like, if my ego shows up, so my partner has an allergy to ego,
Yeah.
um, especially mine, but male ego and predominantly. And so she's allergic to it. So
Yeah.
what happens is when it flares up, when it shows up, then the sword comes out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm used to, like in the sense like we've had lots of these because it's cyclical, right? So we've had these
Hmm.
opportunities to explore us again and again. In the beginning, boy, it was violent, and oh God, I was so attached to my head,
Yeah.
and I did
Yeah.
not want to chop it. Ah, it would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
Now, like, it's kind of neat because I can just be like, oh, hey, do you want me to just go ahead and I'll just go ahead and chop my own right now. Like
Uh-huh.
I see, there's a response happening here. I know I can see this is my tendency. Okay, and it's a lot gentler, a lot nicer, but it's a lot more like playful because we can see
Yeah.
each other, right? Like, it's not that it's not serious, right? It is that too, but like we can sort of acknowledge because I know her, she can see me, I can see her. There isn't all this other crap in the way, right? And it's like a
Mm.
thinning out of the veils that separate us, and that
Mm.
experience is quite beautiful.
That is really beautiful. Yeah, and I love to, that's an example of your relationship getting better, right? Is that,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah,
you know, t I think I see so much and what you hear about so much is like people just getting more and more bitter over the years and angry about those kinds of things. Like, why do you still do this?
right,
But instead, what's happening is that you guys see each other, you know your flaws, right? You know your weak points,
yeah,
but you're willing to be like, "Yep, I know that, and I love you," and right,
right,
and
right,
and also when I catch myself doing it, I'm willing to kind of, with humor, kind of recognize it, acknowledge it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
For
it
sure.
that's
And it is
beautiful.
so much just like you were mentioning at the outset of the show. It is very much like meditation practice. When the times when Kali comes out is usually when we've distracted ourselves and we quit remembering what we're
Mm,
doing to get. Like why are we here? What are we doing? Right? Like we lost our motivation, our intention. Yeah, sure, we're living in the same space and going through the same motions or whatever, but like we forgot what we were doing.
yeah.
Right. Just like my friend was telling me, Tara was telling me, right? Like, you know, hey, in order to avoid that resentment, in order to avoid that kind of harmful sort of relationship or dynamic, I have to remember that I love them, right?
Yeah.
Like and right, like that kind of sort of remembering is really like that's what gets to happen now. So
Mm,
before, what would happen is we would get lost for days, weeks, months, right? In these like complete madness of like my ego, her ego,
mm,
whatever, right? But
mm-hmm.
now it can be like, like a half-hour discussion where it's like, oh yeah, oh, let's get back to what we were doing.
Wow, that is such a blessing, isn't it?
Truly,
Oh
truly.
man. Um, it's making me think a little bit about this like dynamic, kind of like a dialectic of acceptance and change, where it's like, there's this balance where it's like accepting the person as they are right now, accepting ourselves as we are right now, and also recognizing that we're constantly changing, that we have the ability to change, that that things can change for the better, that we can learn. And so that's such like a beautiful example of that, that it's like, yeah, we're still dealing with some of the same issues we're coming back to, right? We accept that. And we also see that it's changing and that we can continue to change, right? I love that.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. What are some of your other sort of favorites sort of Dharma lessons to apply to relationships?
Well, I think that that last one I just mentioned about like really allowing myself to see impermanence, which can be very painful, right? Because I definitely, and I imagine many people have this issue in most of my relationships, not just my romantic relationship. I do have this like picture of who that person is, right? And it's very much my ego based, right? It's like this version that I have of them in my mind that is probably not really them, like right,
Right,
like
right.
it's something different. It's something that that is like something that I get to have. And when something happens that breaks me out of that, like, oh, that's different, right, from what I thought that you were, that can be kind of painful. um
Yeah, yeah,
but if I'm holding that gently, right, and like not becoming so fixed around it, then I can see like, oh yeah, you're just another human like
yeah,
me. Like you're fucking up, I'm fucking up. We're also doing great. We're also, like
yeah.
there's this, we're dynamic beings, rather than this kind of solid thing that I would like to make some of the people in my life.
Right.
Because there's like a sense of security in that, that like, okay, I know that that person is going to be there for this, right? But that's not always the case. So when I can like breathe into that or lean into that, as some people
Yeah.
say, that can be really liberating. And also, I tend to fall in love with people more
Hmm.
when I can see like that they're not that solid thing, and that they are this like flawed, lovely
Right,
creature who's just trying to figure it out. And how amazing that we've like come across one another.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, isn't that so interesting? That like we can, or in my experience, it's like I end up feeling more fondness when I'm able to let go of that more solid picture of a
That's
loved
right.
one.
That's right. There's more like um allowance, if you will. Like there's more openness for this, like um, I don't know, there's all these fluctuations, and then you get like surprises and revelations, and
Yeah.
right, like where like there it's richer. So one of the things that came up for me while you were talking about this is like if you ever notice, so my natural when people are critical of me or pointing something out about my defects or whatever, what they don't like about me, of course, I'm naturally sort of habitually defensive. But what I
Hmm.
notice is that if I'm in a more of a meditative mindset and I can sort of allow for it, I can just see it and I'm like, oh yeah, actually I can see yeah, of course. I mean, they're right. I was conditioned a certain way. I can see the causes and conditions that led to a Daniel being this particular way or whatever. And so and that's really nice because then I'm not so fixed. There's not such a narrow me happening
Yeah.
here, but co-arising simultaneously with that thought or that experience is, oh, actually the same is true for them. The
Yeah.
exact same thing. All the things that I'm unhappy about whatever's happening in that particular experience, same thing. Same thing. They've got
Mhm.
their karma. I've got mine. We got our conditioning. We have our habit patterns. And actually, a loving is not about somehow collapsing it all and saying we're all one or whatever.
Yeah.
No
Right.
stupid shit like that. It's like seeing their divine unique attributes, right? Like this
Yeah.
this is this is them, and they, of course, differences abound. That's what makes, I mean, that's what all this stuff is a bunch of differences, right? And learning to love that like as it is, not some projection, not some kind of overlay, not some kind of story, none of that. Like really being like, oh, look, there
Yeah.
you are in all
Yeah.
your glory, right? Including your neuroses.
Totally.
Speaking of which, I think it was Chogyam Trungpa who I think it was him. Somebody asked him about the ornament, like so all the Buddhas who have all the jewelry and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And somebody asked him like, "What's all that about?" And he said, "Oh, they're displaying their neuroses."
Wow.
And I remember being like, what? And then, right, they're unique attributes. They're, of course, right? Like the Buddha nature is fundamental. There is this sort of, sure, of course, there is an ultimate sort of whatever you want to call it, right? But no, what we perceive are differences. And so
Mm,
that's something to be cherished, right? It's not that we have to revel in people being jerks or anything like that. It's not what I mean. But like
yeah.
if we're in relation with people, like let's see them as they are, right? Let's
Yeah.
see their beautiful ornaments and jewelry and all of that stuff.
Hell yeah. I love that. Well, it's just like it opens us up to wonder, right? Or it's like,
Right,
wow, how did this come to be? Like, how did we come? Like, how are we here right now
right.
together? How
Yeah,
amazing. This is just incredible. And yeah, I love that it helps me connect with kind of this that magic I think that I felt when I first approached Dharma was like, you know, all of these, recognition of like karma and not that I have a recognition of
yeah,
interdependence, the teachings on interdependence, where it's just like, wow, this is amazing. And so in that way, yeah, relationship can really, really connect me back to my Dharma training, because it's like it's all there, right? All these ways that we've come together, these kind of, little appearances coming together, and it's amazing creating these
yeah,
karma
coming together and dissolving.
and dissolving.
That's the
Yeah,
other part of it, right? Like, oh, it's impermanent, right? That's the charnel ground aspect. It's there's the death and dying of these relationships. It's not just changing, they're not just growing and aging, but they are, as you said, on the one hand, they're sort of miraculously appearing together and then they're disappearing as well.
yeah, like a mirage, a bubble. Yeah,
Drops of dew, lightning.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, and just like this show is like a bubble, isn't it? It goes so quickly.
Pop.
Pop. Daniel, I'm so glad that we get to
Then
share a bubble together.
you're
It's very
bubblicious,
sweet.
Jack.
Oh, thank you. Yes, same to you. And to everyone out there, all you special bubbles together, I really appreciate you. And if you can make a donation, that's wonderful. Lionsroaddharmacenter.org. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you next week. Much
Take
love.
care. Bye, Jack. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.